Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 176 of I Wish You Were Dead, a podcast about things that used to be alive. My name is Mike, that is Gavin, and Fia. And friends, have either one of you ever, I don't know if the proper term is here, gotten like a surprise, surprise delivery at a wedding, like an icy surprise delivery?
Like getting iced?
Yeah, like getting iced. Is that a thing that's ever happened to any of you?
Did you plan this ahead of time?
Yeah, Gavin, I want you to think for a second how much planning went into anything that I've ever done in my life.
You
There
know,
was no plan. There was just
fair.
an opportunity. There was an opportunity. I took it. I got yelled at.
No, not even at the wedding. I'm talking about like you talking about this right now because Fia picked up on that really fast.
No, didn't plan anything. Because here's the thing. Me and Fia, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Gavin, where are you at?
Yeah,
I don't even know about this situation.
He's getting iced is what he's doing.
I mean, not currently, but so for anyone not familiar,
Are you going to explain getting iced?
I am. So
It's incredible. This is why people come here.
Smirnoff Ice is an inexpensive and generally not well regarded brand of cheap liquor or other kind of alcohol. I don't know what kind it is. Probably vodka. And getting iced is when you hide a bottle and or can of Smirnoff Ice in just around, and then intentionally for someone else to find. And when they find it, they have to drink it all in that one go. Mike and I saw each other at a wedding. Our friend Emily got married over Valentine's Day weekend, so that was fun. And Mike iced me. My friend Emily, the one who got married, did try to stop it. Did try to protect little old Gavin. But then my wife got involved and helped facilitate said icing. So
Yeah, me and your wife had a whole thing going on where I realized they had Smirnoff Ice available at the open bar. So I get Smirnoff Ice.
the last one at the bar, by the way.
The last one. Your wife led you away, but you took your suit coat.
Yes.
Which is where I was going to put it, but no problem. I go and I put it on Gavin's chair. As I'm doing this, the bride walks over and she gets, Michael, what are you doing? And I'm like, and I hold it up and I show the ice. It's the kind of thing I think that she would be all in favor of.
I would think so too. I'm sure she was just stressed from wedding day.
Between that and the fact that I was the one doing it, probably didn't exactly help matters. So I was told very explicitly no, and this is the one day a year, or like one day ever, where I'm really not going to try and poke her and be like, no, come on. She was, getting married after all. So took it away, and then, 20 minutes later, Gavin's wife comes over at when an opportunity presented itself, grabs the Smirnoff Ice and just takes care of it for me.
So that was a fun weekend. And because I'm getting on to 30 now, I had a headache for the next day and a half. So.
My God, did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Gavin.
They don't make them like they used to.
They definitely don't. Fia, how are you doing? We're talking, wedding stories here. Anything new with you?
No, I'm good. I'm just chilling. Studying for quals and looking at a lot of amphipods. That's kind of my life right now.
Amphipods? Those are a crustacean.
Speaking of.
That's what we call a natural segue here in the news. Today we're talking about crabs. There's a lot going on with crabs. They're very fun. They're a famous internet meme. But we'll talk about that after we get through all of our housekeeping and all of our intro segments. So, Fia, can you keep some house for us?
Okay, so as always, listeners, don't forget to rate the show on whatever platform you listen to us on, and to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to give us feedback about the show and any future topics you would like to hear on the pod. And if you would like to be a guest on the show, be sure to fill out our guest form. And all that stuff can be found in the show notes. And with that, Gavin, what are we going to talk about next episode?
Yeah, next episode, we're going to be talking, even though we did a dinosaur episode, like, not all that long ago, we're doing another one. We're going to be talking about Spinosaurs from Jurassic Park 3 fame. Not just Spinosaurus, but the whole group of them, because it was actually just today, the day we're recording, a new species of Spinosaurus named and published and stuff, which is exciting. Spinosaurus is a very interesting dinosaur, to say the least. And it's one of the few like dinosaurs that I find just like really interesting because it is so strange. But yeah, so we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks' time.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
With that,
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thanks for keeping house, Fia. Mike, did you have enough time to quickly Google what happened today?
I'm offended that you would even ask that question. Of course I did. So, I got 2 good ones actually. So, number one, on today's date, 1959, at age 16, a certain guitarist plays his first ever gig. Do you guys know what guitarist I'm referring to?
What was the date?
1959.
59. I'm going to say Jimi Hendrix.
Spot on. Jimi
Wow.
Hendrix plays his first gig, age 16, at Temple de Hirsch Synagogue in a basement in Seattle. Apparently, he was fired from the band after the first set due to his wild playing. Can you imagine being the people that were like, "Not Jimmy, sorry, you gotta,
you gotta relax, Jimmy."
The other one here is in 1962. John Glenn becomes the first American to orbit Earth aboard Friendship 7. John Glenn, who went on to become a senator, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah.
Aviator, politician. He was a senator from Ohio. So, rather famous American. And like anytime we get a chance to talk about space stuff, I'm in. So yeah, we got Hendrix and John Glenn. That's a pretty elite.
That's a good combo.
1-2 punch. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Awesome. So with that, Fia, what's going on down the seagrass corner?
Yeah. So I'm gonna try and pack something in here that could easily take a whole episode, but
okay.
I just felt like popping off today. So we're gonna talk about sound underwater really quick.
Okay.
Because we talked about sound last week, I was like, I'm kind of inspired. Yeah. So first, just in general, sound waves are created by particle motion, and you can think of them as like a bunch of sine waves on a graph, so up and down and up and down and up and down. And they can change in their loudness based on how big the waves are. So if it's like a big swing, then it'll be more loud. And then if it's little tiny swings in the sine wave, then it'll be quieter. And then the number of waves, or those sine waves, the number of those per second determines how much the pitch is. So whether it's like a really high pitch or like a really low pitch, more of those waves within a second equals higher pitch. And so this also differs in the air, but I want to talk about some principles of how sound is changed in water, and specifically in coastal areas like the ones that I'm working with. So in terms of water depth, sound waves will not travel as far in shallow water because the waves are basically bumping into a bunch of boundaries. So the water, air, surface layer, the bottom of the ocean, they're hitting like the surface, the bottom, they're bouncing back and forth, and the signals get muddier, and so the sounds don't travel as far. And then when you have different bottom types, like soft, luscious seagrasses, those like to absorb sound, and so sound will not travel as far in those as well. Whereas if you have hard areas like hard bottoms or coral reefs, those will refract sound, so they'll just let it just bounce straight off. They won't absorb it, and so sound will travel farther in those habitat types. And so something that I'm kind of doing is looking and investigating how like fish sounds differ within like these different types of habitats. like the number of fish calls and like the different types. But I have to kind of consider these like foundational ecological principles and like physics of sound, because I'm not going to be able to compare 1-to-1 seagrass to hardbottom because of these differences.
Okay.
And so, those are just my fun facts. It also, temperature and salinity will also make sound travel faster. And so I'll just be thinking about all of that for a while.
Well, it's gonna be one of those things that you're laying in bed, at night, and just be like, salinity.
Yep. So that's what's up in the seagrass corner.
Cool.
Lovely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
All
we're staying mostly in the ocean, not entirely in the ocean though, for the main topic today, which is crabs. So, crabs have become kind of a meme in biology circles because the shape of crab has evolved separately in crustaceans several times. So the joke.
So I have a programming question actually, Gavin.
Sure.
So in the last episode, I accidentally swore twice. So, as penance, I know I can't swear in this episode. Am I allowed to laugh at crabs whenever the opportunity arises, or do I have to like keep that on the inside?
You do you, buddy. I'll figure it out.
Yes.
I'll figure it out in the edit.
Appreciate you. Thank you. We're talking about crabs. Gavin, tell me about your crabs.
Yeah, so basically the joke goes that crabs are the most perfect and optimized form of life, and that given enough time, all life will eventually evolve into being crab-shaped. That is the meme. This process has a scientific term, in fact, because it is, kind of a theme called carcinization. It's been around a lot longer than I would have thought, actually, that term. All the way back to 1916, the evolutionary biologist Lancelot Alexander Borodai described carcinization as, quote, the many attempts of nature to evolve a crab, unquote.
I love it.
This is why I'm on the Wikipedia page right now. This is wild.
Yeah.
Crabs
so,
are
like, I would-
the
like-
elite structure.
Yes.
Gavin, I didn't believe you.
Mhm.
I had to look this up myself. This is an actual thing.
Yeah,
This is why I wanted to do this episode.
absolutely. This
This
whole
is-
episode, the idea was pitched by Fia while we were getting ready to record last episode. But yeah, so Fia and Mike, this one's leaning a little more toward Fia. A, because she's not on the Wikipedia page, and B,
Okay, all right. So what is that supposed to mean?
I mean, you're
Leaning
about
more
to
towards
take an
Fia.
open book quiz,
Okay.
and because
I'm
Fia also works with marine invertebrates. If you had to guess, how many times has the shape of being crabby evolved?
all right. So I have not seen this on the Wikipedia
Okay.
page yet.
Well,
It's gonna be like 6, 17, or thousands.
Okay.
yeah. So I'm looking at the pod notes, so I know the answer.
Oh,
Ah!
But
bummer.
but
Uno reverse card.
I know. But I said last time like 6, so that was my guess.
Gotcha. But yeah, so Mike, absolutely, that was the same thought I had coming into this. I was like, it's either going to be way fewer than I thought, or infinite.
Yes.
And the answer is probably 5, which is definitely lower than I would have thought.
That doesn't. I don't know if doing it 5 times is enough to deserve its own name.
Oh, come on.
We'll talk about it.
I can be convinced, but
The memes on the internet would have led me to believe more.
All right. Well, tell me all about it.
Yeah, so being crab-shaped has evolved separately roughly 5 times. But because of that, all of the various things that we call crabs are not always that closely related to each other. And there are many non-crabby things that are closely related to things that we do call crabs, but are not crab-shaped. Biologically, it's all very confusing. That being said, almost all the things that we call crabs are within one group. So it's not like a widespread thing. It's just happened several times in that same group, if that makes sense. And so, first let's talk about what is a crab. Crabs are arthropods. So they're invertebrates. They don't have inside bones. That have jointed legs and a hard exoskeleton. So these are things like hexapods, which are your insects, chelicerates, which are your spiders, scorpions, ticks, mites, and horseshoe crabs. We'll come back to those. Myriapods, which are your centipedes and millipedes, and crustaceans. These are crabs, lobsters, shrimp, krill, isopods, barnacles, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Amphipods.
Crustaceans. What was that?
What?
What?
Aren't amphipods also crustaceans?
Yes. But nobody who doesn't study marine invertebrates knows what an amphipod is.
No, I know. I just wanted to shout out the amphipods here.
But yes, crustaceans, crabs, are closest to insects, and then myriapods, centipedes, and millipedes are next, and then chelicerates, the spiders and scorpions and stuff. Insects, fun fact, technically are crustaceans. And there are a couple of groups that are more closely related to insects than they are to crabs. So it's sort of like how with birds being dinosaurs, right? Where it's like there are a lot of dinosaurs that are more closely related to birds than they are to other dinosaurs. Similar deal with insects being a branch of crustaceans. So crabs, as we just talked about, are crustaceans. That means being a crustacean means that they have lots of legs, which pretty much all end in a little fork, at least ancestrally. Some of them have kind of gotten rid of that, but when they're developing, as well as their antennae, also sort of end in like a little split at the end, like they have split end hair, basically. So think of a lobster, how it has the big walking legs toward the front, and then all the little tiny legs underneath the tail. That's the kind of generic idea. They got lots of legs used for different stuff. Within crustaceans, crabs are decapods, meaning that they have 10 legs, many of which, at least 10 walking legs. Many decapods have turned the frontmost pair of legs into grasping claws of some kind. These are all things that look generally crabby, lobstery, or shrimpy. Decapods. Shout out to Moana, who talks about decapods in a song. Within decapods, crabs and lobsters are in a group called Repantania? Yes, Repantania. There it is.
Sure.
Basically, they use their legs mostly for walking instead of swimming. So like crabs and lobsters mostly walk, whereas things like shrimp and prawns mostly swim. Lots can do both, but that's mainly what each of them do. That's kind of the main split. And then basically every subgroup in this Repantania group has something you could call a crab. Because all a crab is basically a lobster with a wider head and the tail curled underneath the head. That's basically it.
A crab is a lobster with, you said, a wider head?
Oh my god.
Yeah, so imagine a lobster.
Gavin, this changes everything for me.
Yeah.
I've never thought of a crab like this.
Imagine a lobster. How they're kind of like vaguely tube-shaped with the big claws out front, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it being long and narrow, make the front half, that's not the tail, make that a wide oval.
Sure.
And then take the tail and tuck it and like curl it underneath the now round body. You've just turned a lobster into a crab. That's it.
Okay. I'm following you.
This is crazy.
Yeah. And there are obviously some other things, but it's like that's why this has happened this handful of times, because it is that simple.
No.
There are some other bits. So, for example, this body shape makes it easier to run sideways than forward. That's why crabs walk like that. And so let's talk about some of the different kinds of crabs. So first, we'll talk about the ones that are the actual true crabs.
Okay, wait, Gavin.
Yeah.
Quick pause. So you're saying that lobsters were first and then evolved into crabs?
Yes.
All 5 times?
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a bit once we get into sort of the fossil evolution side of it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so first up, we have the true crabs, quote unquote. This is the infraorder Brachyura. The name Brachyura literally means short tail. These are what you think of when you think of a crab. They're mostly round and flat, main body, with a couple of tall, skinny eyes that pop out from the front, and a pair of claws with long walking legs. These live basically everywhere, from the deepest parts of the ocean to very few species that live in freshwater, but there are some, to pretty far inland. There's a good number of terrestrial crabs. Most still have to come to the water to lay eggs, but there are a few that have evolved for the mother to sort of keep them wrapped up in the tail that is now folded under the body. Most of them cannot move this tail at all. All the muscles and everything that would normally be used, like lobsters can swim. They have, there is like actual name for like the reflex for it, where they just like swoop their tail underneath them real quick, and that like propels them backwards.
Yeah.
I grew up in a really rural area with a lot of streams. I would go crayfish hunting as a kid.
The crawdads.
Yeah. And crayfish are just a type of lobster. They're just small freshwater lobsters. And, they're pretty tough to catch, because as soon as they see you coming, if you come from the front, they swoop and they get out of there. All the muscles that let them do that in crabs are gone. But they can, some of them it is like fused to the bottom of the shell. Whereas in some others, it's not fused quite so much. So some of the ones that live on land fully have evolved to sort of turn this almost into like a little pouch to hold their eggs in, so they don't have to go back to the water, which is really cool. In this true crabs group are things like fiddler crabs. These are the ones where the males have like one absolutely enormous claw, whereas the other one's teeny tiny, and they use that to really fight each other, and mostly just to show off how big and strong they are. Spider crabs are also in this group. Those are the ones that live in like pretty deep water with like extreme crazy long legs. They range in size from the pea crab, which is only a few millimeters long, to the Japanese spider crab, which has a leg span of around 13 feet. The deep oceans scare me. That's
the deep
big.
oceans are terrifying.
Which, to be fair, its body is actually, like, all things considered, relatively small. It just has incredibly very long legs.
Have you ever seen those like eels in the deep sea that unhinge their jaw and then become this giant like monster?
Yep.
Oh, what are those called?
At one point in my life I knew this, but I don't anymore.
I can't remember. Well, crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
But crabs eat just about everything. There are very few, like there are some that are specialists in just herbivory or just carnivory, but most of them are detritivores, where they just kind of eat whatever, just the organic bits and pieces that they find laying around. They eat whatever they can find, especially the deep water ones. Food's really rare in the deep ocean, so they just eat whatever they can. Some of the larger ones are really well adapted for using their claws to like crush open things with tough shells, like clams or snails or even other crabs. And most of them, in fact, need to eat a wide variety of things for their shells to actually grow correctly, which is kind of neat. So these, like I said, are the quote-unquote true crabs, which, to be fair, is most of them. Brachyura has around 7,000 living species. Those are just the named ones. There's probably a lot more that are not just like formally named by science yet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, like I said, if these are the true crabs, that implies that there are imposter crabs. There are several
imposter crabs.
Yes.
Preach.
That's a Gavin term. You'll just see these called non-true crabs.
I love it.
Yep.
Petition and name change. Petition and name change.
Imposters. But yeah, so there are lots of things that we call crabs that are not in this group or even all that closely related. Firstly, one that I've already mentioned, horseshoe crabs. Not even remotely related.
I feel like it makes sense because they do be looking not like a crab.
Yeah, I don't know why we call these crabs because they don't even have like a big pair of claws.
Yeah.
At the front, and that is kind of like the crab's whole thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, dear listeners, it's basically imagine like an upside down frisbee, or I guess a normal frisbee. Yeah.
My imagination of this is that it's like a hard stingray with legs underneath.
That is a really good comparison. Yeah.
Stingray with legs underneath.
Okay. But it's like hard. Yeah, it's not
hard.
Like soft. It's like knock, 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 a shell, kind of.
Yeah. And they've got lots of little legs underneath them. They have been around for forever. We talked about them, I think, quite a bit. We had a very early episode about living fossils and why that's a dumb term.
Yeah, that rings a bell, actually.
But, horseshoe crabs have been around for, like, for sure, over 400 million years, probably 500 million years, and just have not changed all that much. They're not closely related to crabs at all. They're not even crustaceans. They're in the same group as spiders and scorpions. They don't have big claws like actual crabs. They clearly have that long skinny tail behind their body instead of like curled under their body. They're not crabs, and we shouldn't call them crabs. But anyway, common names are dumb. Moving on. Next. Of all the crabby things that are actually crustaceans, true crabs are the most basal, meaning that they split off pretty early in the evolution of decapods. So if we have all the decapods, so this is all of the crabs, lobsters, shrimps, prawns, things. So the shrimps and prawns, the swimming guys, they branched and left the walking guys, the crabs and lobsters. Basically, right after that split, the true crabs split off, leaving lobsters, and then within that, a lot of other things just became crabby after the true crabs had split off already. So we'll go through some of these relatively famous non-true crabs. The most famous, I think for sure, at least in my mind, are hermit crabs.
Yes, they look
very, very cute, very popular. They are decapods that basically use the shells of snails as their home. Their abdomen, so this is the tail, that in normal crabs, true crabs, is curled under the body. They don't curl under the body. It's just very soft and basically defenseless. It doesn't have that arthropod hardness to it.
They're so gross. Like,
they're disgusting. If you look up a hermit crab without a shell on it, it's gross.
I'm doing stable isotope work right now, so I have to pull out all of the hermit crabs out of the shell because the shell would mess with the carbon signatures. And so I have to see a lot of insides of hermit crabs, and it's just not something I enjoy.
Yeah. But yeah, so their abdomen is really like soft and basically defenseless, so they need the snail shell to protect it. And this is such a weird and cool evolutionary thing to have happened because they are entirely dependent on a handful of things that need to go right for them to just exist in an environment. There needs to be enough snails in the environment to make enough shells. There needs to be things that eat snails that kill them without destroying the shell. Right? Because if something eats the snail and crushes the shell, then it can't be used by the crab. And in the water, there are a ton of things that eat snails. You know, like fish, stingrays, crabs. They eat snails, but they just crush the shell to get to the actual snail on the inside. So hermit crabs need to live in a place where there's a lot of things that eat snails that don't do that. And actually, in recent times, like very recent times, hermit crabs have actually gotten pretty good at using various man-made things instead of snail shells.
Yes, I think I have seen some stuff
like what?
Like bottles.
Yeah, like
really?
Small bottles or anything that they can squeeze their abdomen into.
So I have a dumb question.
Yeah.
Like, is that a good thing? Like, is it like is the fact that that's happening like them being resourceful and like a use for our waste, or is this like really bad that
I mean for the hermit crabs it's probably fine. It's probably not great for what they eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hermit crabs, this could be a whole episode about hermit crabs. They're so cool though. Hermit crabs have a ton of fascinating behaviors with these snail shells and how they find new ones. They work and kind of talk to each other to swap shells. They have like rituals to be like, hey, I want your shell. And there's like, they walk up, they like wave their claws a certain way. And the other one has like a set handful of responses where it's like, no, I like my shell. Or I'm interested. Maybe let me take a look at your shell. And sometimes they will just swap. And sometimes if there's a hermit crab that like finds a new shell, that's like, because they need to get new shells as they grow, right? Because they're not growing the shell. Yeah. So as the actual crabs continues to grow, they will need to find a new shell that fits them. If it finds one that it likes, but it's like, I don't quite fit in it yet, it's like, it'll just hang out by a shell because it knows a bigger hermit crab will come along. And they will basically get in line from biggest to smallest. And then once one comes along that fits this shell, the empty one, they will basically just pass their shells down the line.
Really?
Yeah, they're really cool. Please look this up. It's really interesting.
Really?
Yeah. And hermit crabs live just about everywhere. They're mostly like warm weather, but they live in a very wide variety of places. Some are completely underwater. Some live in fresh. In both, I think there's like one or two species of freshwater hermit crabs.
Yeah.
But there's some that are almost completely terrestrial. And there are
weird.
Yeah. And there are even some in like the hermit crab group that do not behave like hermit crabs. For example, king crabs, like the one like Alaskan king crabs, so you go to like a Chinese buffet and eat. They are in this group.
What?
King crabs are not closely related to true crabs, but they are within the hermit crab group. They just evolved to no longer be hermit crabs. Yeah.
Weird. That one
Whack.
That one took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was not ready for that one.
Also in this hermit crab group, the largest terrestrial arthropod in the world, the coconut crab.
Oh my gosh.
Coconut crab.
They're creepy.
They're very creepy.
Me out. They're scary.
They are a hermit crab, and not just like a member of the group, but looks different like the king crabs. No, juvenile coconut crabs live just like normal hermit crabs. They need the snail shells and everything.
What?
Yeah, and then once they get big enough, there are no more snail shells big enough for them.
Whoa.
And then they become full adults. Their abdomen then hardens and is placed like not fully under their body like a crab, but more than like a regular hermit crab. And so, like I said, these are the largest terrestrial arthropod in the world. They get way too big. They get like 9 pounds and over like 3 feet across. They're very big.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, on hermit crabs, there is a separate group, not closely related to these hermit crabs, but there is another group of crabby things called deep water sea anemone hermit crabs.
Say that word again.
Deep water sea
not that one.
anemone.
There it is.
Hermit crabs.
Anemone.
These are closer to hermit crabs than they are to real crabs, but not that close. And as the name suggests, they live in deep water. And instead of snail shells, they partner with corals and sea anemones to cover their soft abdomen. They separately evolved to be crabby shaped, and separately to have a soft, like uncalcified abdomen. And they just walk around carrying coral or sea anemone. There's not many pictures of these online because they live in very deep water.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, so
yeah,
question, is this different from like a decorator crab that like has a shell and then puts things like sponges and corals and stuff on them? Okay.
I did not see I've heard of decorator crabs, but they didn't come up in my like writing for this episode. But yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a crab that just like sticks stuff to its back. They're also very cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know off the top of my head whether they're real crabs or one of these other fakers.
Okay.
But yes, other crabby groups that are separate from true crabs, actual hermit crabs, or these deep water weirdos. Porcelain crabs. Very large group. A bunch of different genera in this group. They look almost exactly like true crabs. This is definitely the closest looking kind. The main thing, though, is that they have one fewer pair of walking legs.
Fewer pair of walking legs.
True crabs have their claws up front, right? And then 4 pairs of walking legs. These guys have their claws and then 3 pairs of walking legs. Unlike true crabs, these guys can actually move their abdomen a bit. They do still keep it under their body almost all the time, but they still can move it at least a bit. There is moving on to the next group here, there's a single species called the hairy stone crab, which by all accounts looks like a normal crab, but several sources that I read insist that it evolved this crab shape independently.
Hairy crabs.
The next are mole crabs or sand crabs. These are like the weird little things you find buried in like the wet sand on a beach. They look much less crabby to me because they don't have like large noticeable claws at the front of their body. They're also a bit more narrow because they dig, and that just helps if you're not like big and wide. But yeah, if you just dig through like the wet sand on a beach at like low tide or something, you'll see a bunch of these in the sand. They're just like little gray kind of oblong little crustaceans. And there's I guess a couple other groups that all look like crabs to varying degrees. I will say this is not in my notes anywhere, but because Mike keeps bringing it up, the human parasite crabs are
keep
not.
Bringing what up?
Are
what are
not
you talking about, Kevin?
The human ectoparasite, that we often call crabs, are not crabs. Off the top of my head, I don't know what they are. I would guess that it's an insect, kind of like lice, but I don't think it's a crustacean. So once again, a thing that I don't know why we call crabs. So that is kind of modern crab diversity. And in between all of these things, often just like the next, genera over from a lot of these things is just a lobster. In between all of these groups, there are lobsters. There's a group called squat lobsters, which are almost like a halfway between a lobster and a crab. They're just like more round lobsters with smaller tails. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's like there's all sorts of steps in between full lobster that you'd find in a tank at like your supermarket or whatever, and crab. There's lots of different things all along that continuum. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Why is it only 5? If it seems to be just kind of a continuum? Because we need to put things in boxes to be able to talk about them, and it's complicated. Anywho, so now let's look a little bit into their evolution and fossils. So crustaceans, in general, are really old. They probably evolved in the earliest part of the Cambrian period, around 520 million years ago. Probably even a little earlier, but we just don't have fossils. They diversified very quickly, and we even have the sort of larger group of crustaceans that's sort of like the main group. We have fossils of them. It's a group called Malacostraca. We have fossils of them from the Cambrian period. That's the group that includes crabs, lobsters, shrimp, isopods, and krill. So this is most crustaceans, but they diversified pretty quickly. The first decapods, so these are the 10-legged ones. This is shrimp, lobsters, crabs. They show up in the early Devonian period, about 420 million years ago. But they were probably around a bit before that, based on like DNA molecular studies. And basically around the same time, as soon as we see the first decapods, we see the first lobsters, like walking lobsters instead of swimming. So that's around 420 million years ago. It's not until the latest part of the Jurassic period and into the Cretaceous, around 145 million years ago, that we see the first crabs. So from the time we get our first lobsters to the time we get our first crabs, it's about 270 million years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like, I never have a sense of time on this podcast, but that seems like a long time.
It's a long time. And so my first thought after having sort of realized that is, if crabs are so perfect, why did it take so long for that to happen? that was kind of my first thought. So, and the answer, it turns out there actually is like a pretty solid answer. There's an event in Earth's history that we haven't really talked about all that much on the pod. It's called the Mesozoic Marine Revolution. During the last 100 or so million years of the Mesozoic era. So this was from around 175 million years ago to 66 million years ago. Basically, it was sort of a reorganization of life in the oceans, where organisms of all kinds, from snails to crustaceans to bony fish to sharks to marine reptiles, all began to show trends in becoming more adapted to eating hard-shelled things. Up until this point, there weren't many things that were like specialized at cracking open hard shells. Clams had been around for a really long time by this point, basically from the beginning of complex life. But they just kind of had it okay. Yeah, there obviously were some things, right? Everything has a predator, but there was not a lot that was hard specialized. This is also separately around the time when bivalves started to like start living, not just sitting on the seafloor, but like burrowing into the seafloor. And doing that to hide, because all of these things started to actually be able to eat them now. So like, well, if I live in the sand, maybe they won't be able to find me. And so, yeah, around this time, these adaptations to eat hard stuff became a lot more prominent in all these different groups. Some, such as snails, evolved ways to like drill holes into the shells of bivalves and like slurp out the meat through the hole. Lots of
Slurp out the meat through
Yes.
the hole. Good God. All right, that's a sentence.
Yeah, no, it's one of the few times where you can easily tell how an animal died in the fossil record, because there's a group of snails called moon snails, where if you find like a bivalve shell with like a perfectly circular hole in it, you can be very confident that that clam or whatever other kind of bivalve was killed by a moon snail. Like, it literally looks like a bullet hole. It is perfectly round because they drill through the hole and just kind of, they kill the bivalve that way. And then they eat the bivalve. They eat the meat.
Yeah, I think there's like a type of snail like around here that's like commonly referred to as like the oyster drill.
Mm-hmm. I bet it's a type of moon snail. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, like lots of sharks and fish and marine reptiles evolved their teeth from like pointy cones that are good at grabbing fish and squid into like crushing plates that kind of work just like a nutcracker to just crack open shells to get the stuff on the inside. Decapods, so lobsters at this point, were in an interesting position in this scenario because they also had hard shells that would now be easier for all of these new adaptations to crush. But they also have a great tool for crushing hard things with their big, meaty claws. So they were kind of on both sides of this. So they underwent lots of changes around this time to increase their defenses, both in terms of like thicker shells, but also bigger claws, new body shapes, and new behaviors to help avoid getting eaten. And so all of this previous episode to say, why does this keep happening? Why do things keep turning into crabs? Because there are a handful of very important benefits that it gives you. First, sideways walking.
Yep.
Here on land,
The crab walk.
that might not seem like the biggest of deals. We can do that pretty easily. But being able to move sideways in the ocean is a kind of a big deal. Like, think of a fish. That fish has ways to move forward really well, and pretty good ways to move like up and down in the water. Generally speaking, fish can't move side to side, like without also moving forward.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought of that, but yeah, no, they don't.
And
Wow,
so,
okay.
yeah, so if, some have like specialized fins that kind of let them do it, but like a generic fish does not have a fast way to do that. And this is even more true with things like sharks, which have very stiff fins and can't move side to side basically at all without also moving forward. So if you are a crab, being able to just like skirt yourself sideways opens up a lot more options for escaping being caught by fish in particular. If you just run sideways, that fish who just tried to eat you now has to turn its whole body around to take another pass at you, and by that point, you're probably gone. Yeah, and it's like, again, this is something I had never thought about until looking this up as well, but it's like, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, think about like a boat. You can't turn a boat unless you give it some gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same kind
Sure.
of deal. The general body shape of just like being squat and round instead of being like a long tube like a lobster, just gives you like less exposed surface area that a predator could use to grab you. So you just are less grabbable. It also, the crab body shape versus like the lobster body shape, protects all the little parts that a lobster has under the tail, most of which, or at least many of which, are used in reproduction. So this helps safeguard your eggs, makes it a little harder for your babies to get got by parasites and other things like that. This squat body plan also makes it easier to sort of hunker down in place fairly easily. Because, like, if you are a lobster, the things in front of you, you got your claws there. If it's not, like, something much, much bigger than you, your claws can kind of protect you. But the thing could just kind of go around to your back and you can't get it, right? If you're a crab, you know, just having this like squatter body plan makes your claws sort of have a grab zone that covers much more of your body. And you can just sort of like basically just hunker down to the seafloor and make yourself less grabbable to begin with. But as with like every kind of evolutionary specialization, it does kind of come with some trade-offs, like some negatives. Crabs in general cannot swim very well. Most lobsters kind of can't either, but they can at least like in some like spurts used to escape. They can just like swoop their tail under themselves really fast and do that a couple of times and sort of skirt away through the water. Crabs obviously can't do that because they don't have a tail like that. But crabs generally can't swim per se. There are some that have adapted like their backmost pair of walking legs into like paddles. So instead of being like pointy like you think of like a crab leg, it ends in like a broad, like an oar. That
seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
They should all do that.
I mean, obviously that probably makes them a little worse at walking. But
I mean, that seems like a trade-off worth making if you're in the water.
It depends what kind of environment you live in. If you live like in coral, you can just slip into coral instead of needing to swim away, right?
Okay.
But yeah, other than these handful of crabs that have paddles on their back legs, most crabs are not good swimmers if they can even swim at all. And this is largely due to that, like I said, that reduction of their abdomen, like the tail. You know, shrimp and even lobsters or crayfish, like I said, do that to sort of escape, or shrimp swim most of their time anyway. But that is sort of the biggest drawback, is that you have less of a break glass in case of emergency button, but you're generally better at escaping getting grabbed in the first place. And so that is generally why things become crab. So throughout the mid-Jurassic period through the Cretaceous period, pretty much all of the groups of crabby things that we have today came around, including there are several fossil specimens of hermit crabs using ammonite shells as their home, which is awesome. That is so cool. Ammonites, dear listeners, are the things that we've often referred to as swirly-shelled squid boys.
Yeah, they are.
And so, imagine that, but with a crab on the inside, just dragging it around on the seafloor. That is so funny to me. That's so cool. And the fact that we have, like, not just one fossil of this either is so cool.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them, but there's more than one. The only group of crabby thing that evolved somewhat recently that I could find were the king crabs. The ones that are in the hermit crab group, but are not, that don't live like hermit crabs. Right. They seem to have stopped being hermits sometime in the early Miocene, so only like 20 million years ago. But for basically all the other crabs, it seems like once the true crabs started doing it, pretty soon afterward, there were crabs all over the world doing crabby things.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I want to end off talking about a couple of cases of crabs becoming less crabby, or decarcinization.
The back end has a name too?
Yes, going back from crab to lobster.
Oh, is it always to lobster? Like it's not to something else?
I mean, that's just me being sort of a little tongue-in-cheek there. They don't look like lobsters because once you get rid of something or like greatly reduce something, it is really, really hard to grow it back. Like snakes aren't gonna have legs no matter how long into the future we go. Right. And so I saw it labeled.
You can still let them dream, Gavin.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I saw it labeled as having happened at least 7 separate times, where crabby things became less crabby to various extents. As I mentioned, I was a little tongue-in-cheek. They don't turn back into lobsters, right? Mainly what decarcinization looks like in pretty much all of these ones that have done it, the body going from that like wide and round to long and narrow, as well as trying to repurpose what was left of that greatly reduced abdomen. Like I said, they're not going to full have a lobster tail again, but many of them do no longer have it underneath the body. It is back sort of, behind the animal.
Do any of these exist today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't have a particular like species in here, but
okay.
Yeah. There was one. Oh, actually, yes, I do. There's a group within the true crabs, even called frog crabs,
Okay,
where they uncurled their abdomen, so it's not underneath the body anymore. It is still teeny tiny, and they are more stretched out front to back than like a normal crab.
Oh, I see.
Right, so it obviously is very different than a lobster, right?
Yeah.
But
silly looking.
They're very weird looking. Most of the time this happens when in like burrowing types of crabs, because being wide makes it hard to dig well. Right?
Yeah.
At least if you're digging forward and not side to side, I guess. But one of the examples also of decarcinization, arguably, are actually the coconut crab, as well as a couple other of the hermit crabs that stopped being hermits.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because coconut crabs, like, their abdomen is kinda under their body, but not really. It kinda just looks like a very short, stubby lobster tail without, like, the fin at the end. But the rest of them is extremely crabby, so we call them crabs. But, yeah. So that's crabs. They're not the perfect life form. In fact, several of them have stopped being crabs. But
there's some things to recommend them.
Boy, do I love a good nature meme. And crabs are a good one.
Yes, for sure.
Crabs are a good one, and we hope that this was a good podcast for you. It was episode 176 of I Wish You Were Dead, a podcast about things that used to be alive. My name was Mike, that was Gavin and Fia, and we hope to see all of you guys in a couple weeks for our next episode. Until then, take care, everybody.
This episode of I Wish You Were Dead was written by Gavin Davidson and hosted by Gavin Davidson, Mike Bryson, and Finella Campanino. It was sound edited and edited for YouTube by Gavin Davidson. Special thanks to former guests of the pod and to listeners like you.